evening, Singapore. Good evening, Singapore. Good morning, Spain. Let's begin with this Spain-Singapore dialogue, promoted by the Spanish Chamber of Commerce in Singapore. My name is Ignacio Villoc. I have the honor and the pleasure and the responsibility of being the moderator or facilitator of this dialogue, a dialogue that is going to be about fintech, about this big revolution that is happening thanks to technology and digitalization in the financial industry. And we will have the presidents of the Singaporean Fintech Association, Chia Hock Lai, and the Spanish Fintech Association, Rodrigo García de la Cruz. But first, I would like to give the floor to the ambassador of Spain in Singapore, Santiago Miralles. Ambassador, the floor is yours. Oh.
Estás en mute, Santiago.
Santiago, estás en mute.
It's okay now, huh? Okay, thank you. I'm sorry. I was just saying buenos dias and good afternoon to everybody. And let me welcome all of you and thank you for being with us. This webinar, as Nacho said, is part of the dialogues organized by the Spanish Spanish Embassy here in Singapore in the official Spanish Chamber of Commerce. Because we want to bring closer our two countries in these difficult times. The impact of COVID-19 is very deep for everybody, and the technology in the financing sector is also under pressure. So there are questions on business continuity, lack of funding, or new exigencies in digitalization and brand awarenesses. So it's very good news that the Singapore Fintech Festival will be held this year. The Spanish National Pavilion in the festival last year was a very promising success and increased the Spanish involvement in the festival, although we have been well represented until that year by, for instance, BBVA, Tiger, or Flatware. So we wish maximum success to the hybrid physical virtual celebration of the festival next December. So the commitment from regulators and industry bodies to enhance the fintech ecosystems is essential for the future of the sector. Singapore's fintech funding hit $337 million US in the first 6 months of this year, a 19% increase, which shows the resilience of the Singaporean fintech ecosystem and its purpose to be a global fintech hub. On the Spanish side, the new law for digital transformation of the financial sector will be soon passed in our parliament, and it will provide us the opportunity to become leaders in the fintech innovation arena. One of the chapters is the creation of a fintech regulatory sandbox in Spain. So it's a very much expected project in the emerging Spanish fintech ecosystem, and we hope that it will place Spain in the front line of the innovation in the sector in Europe, especially in these very challenging moments of the Brexit. So the experience of Singapore in all these matters, and also the sandbox, and the advantages of Spain, for instance, as a gateway to Latin America, are value-added topics, as well as for the conversation today. So I'm sure we will have a fruitful dialogue between the highest representatives of the Spanish and Singaporean associations on fintech, moderated by Spanish bank BBVA. So let me thank you and all the participators, Mr. Hock Lai Chia, Mr. Rodrigo García de la Cruz, and of course, Mr. Ignacio Villoc. So enjoy and thank you.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. I think Sinue Arroyo, the chairman of the Spanish Chamber of Commerce, would like to remark something.
Thank you very much, Ignacio. On behalf of the Spanish Chamber of Commerce in Singapore, I'd like to warmly welcome all the participants to this dialogue, Spain-Singapore around fintech, and very particularly, obviously, to Mr. Villoc for agreeing to moderate the panel, but also very especially to Mr. Chia for being part of the panel, and obviously to Mr. Garcia. We are very honored and happy to have this panel. The dialogues between Spain and Singapore are born as a mutual cooperation between the embassy and the Spanish Chamber of Commerce to strengthen the conversation and the exchange of ideas between Spain and Singapore. Fintech in particular, especially in the post-COVID world that starts to open ahead of us, is extremely important. Everything that fintechs touches, it's not just from payments, I would say even automation and digitization around digital transformation has become not just optional, but a part of the business continuity plans of every major, not just financial institution, but any institution. In this particular case, obviously the finance part is what is more relevant for you. So I think it's a very relevant topic. I'm very excited about the conversation that we are going to have, and I'm very happy that it's taking place. So thank you so much, everyone, and over to you, Nacho.
Thanks to you again, Sinue. Well, please allow me now to introduce properly our two main panelists, the main participants, and we will have on the Singaporean side and on the Merlion side, we'll have Mr. Chia Hock Lai, who is the founding president of the Singapore Fintech Association. He is the CEO of SwitchNovate, a fintech consultancy firm that provides financial blockchain solutions. He has more than 2 decades of professional experience in the financial and technology activity. He formerly worked for some government technology agency. He's an alumnus of the prestigious NUS, National University of Singapore, and the Nanyang Technical University. And he's also a co-chairman of the Blockchain Association of Singapore, a strategic advisor and council member of the AFIN, Asian Financial Innovation Network, a member of several countries and working groups of different institutions. He is definitely a very, very busy man. So thank you, Chia Hock Lai, for your availability. Would like to make a small introduction on what makes, well, okay, let me introduce Rodrigo García La Cruz and then we go to the questions. So, and on the other hand, on the Spanish side, on the also on Madroño side, we will have Mr. Rodrigo García de la Cruz, who is the president of the Spanish Association of Fintech and Insurtech. He's the founder and CEO of Finnovating, a fintech innovation platform that helps us to escalate, collaborate, and innovate through global digital ecosystem of more than 1,500 fintechs. He's also the co-founder of the Spanish Fintech Association, the European Digital Finance Association, and co-founder and vice president of the Fintech of Ibero-American Alliance. He has also a previous experience working for major banks like Citibank, Barclays, and Santander. So with these high caliber top profiles, I am pretty confident that these presidents of the Singaporean and Spain Fintech Associations, we can have a very interesting dialogue. So please allow me to begin with Hock Lai. Okay, can you make a small speech, a pitch on what makes Singapore so unique, on what's important on Singapore in the fintech hub and the fintech and the fintech association? As you mentioned before, today is a good day because you have reached a very significant number. Can you please tell us a little bit more, Chia?
Okay, thanks, Vilo. Hi, my name is Hock Lai. Maybe to share about like the Singapore fintech ecosystem. How is it like? I think Singapore started our fintech journey only in 2015. At that point in time, Singapore only has about less than 100 fintech companies. Today we have about 1,000. So it's a 10 times increase over the last 5 years. So what's so different about the Singapore fintech ecosystem? And if you look at it, right, we are actually a very small country, a tiny island of a population size 5.6 million. But we are actually the base of 45% of all the ASEAN fintech companies. So it reflects the unique positioning of Singapore. In fact, half of the founders of the fintech companies in Singapore are foreigners. So what attracted them to Singapore? Okay, a little bit of the statistics we have. Among our 800 members, 80% of them are B2B fintech companies. Okay, so that's a reflection of like Singapore is actually a very small size in terms of B2C. So a lot of the companies that naturally they will gravitate to providing either B2B or B2B2C solutions. The other statistic is more than 80% of them operate beyond Singapore. So you can see that fintech is a very borderless industry. A lot of them operate in more than one country and using Singapore as a base, because geographically, Singapore is at the middle of ASEAN, a region of a population size of more than 650 million. So it's a very sizable market, and all the 10 ASEAN countries are within 4 hours flight. To fly to Jakarta or Bangkok is less than 2 hours. Okay. Why I talk about Jakarta? Because for those focusing on B2C, a lot of them, they will be very interested into the Indonesian market, because Indonesia itself has a population size of 260 million. In fact, every year, newborn babies in Indonesia is 5 million, is one Singapore every year. So the region is very attractive. And I think what makes Singapore tick as a fintech hub, I would allude it to 4 effects. First is regulatory effect. First and foremost, we don't have just one regulatory sandbox. We have 2 regulatory sandboxes. One is the regular sandbox for typical fintech solutions that are innovative, that current regulations might not quite cover it. The other one is a sandbox express, whereby you can get a decision whether you are included in the sandbox within 21 days. Those are for business models that the regulator already understood well, and the risk is low. The other thing is that we have been quite progressive. The regulator has been quite progressive in terms of balancing risk and innovation. So for example, this year we revamped our payment regulation called the Payment Services Act. And inside this Payment Services Act, we also regulated cryptocurrencies. So in Singapore, cryptocurrency is a regulated business. In fact, this regulation is going to be expanded to cover any kind of digital tokens. So that is the regulatory effect. The other is what we call the innovation effect. In Singapore, there are more than 40 innovation labs. You must understand in Singapore why there are so many B2B fintech companies, because in Singapore, we have more than 200 banks and insurance companies, more than 7,000 multinational corporations. This is a sizable market for B2B fintech, and a lot of these corporates are looking forward to collaborate with startups. So in Singapore, we have more than 40 innovation labs. 36 of them are built by financial institutions, including BBVA. Next is what we call ecosystem effect. So as you are aware, we have the largest fintech festival, which is the Singapore Fintech Festival. Last year, we have 60,000 attendees from 140 countries. This year, we are targeting to hit more than 100,000 through a decentralized hybrid online-offline effort. And this actually, in a way, started in 2016 and has catalyzed a lot of fintech development in Singapore and around this region. Next, we also created what we call, together with World Bank, IFC, we created this API exchange platform to connect small and medium-sized financial institutions on one hand, and the fintech companies on the other hand, so they can come to an API platform and find each other and work with one another in a sandbox environment. And if they are happy, they can proceed with collaboration. So this, in a way, create an ecosystem of collaboration between startups and financial institutions. Last, I want to talk about is the scale effect. Basically, Singapore is a very mature economy. So a lot of the fintech companies use Singapore as a test bed. Once the product is perfected, they can then scale to the region or even across the world. A lot of our companies who are in B2B fintech, they will just follow the global banks, opening offices in Paris, in London, in Tokyo. So that is the scale effect. And if you combine all the 4 effects, regulatory, innovation, ecosystem, and scale effect, this create a network effect. And then I think that is what makes Singapore tick. Last year, fintech investment in Singapore hit more than 1.2 billion, basically about 900 million. and first half of this year already increased by 19% despite COVID-19. Yeah, I think this is how Singapore fintech ecosystem is about. Thank you.
Xixie Ni, thank you very much, Hawk Life, for this very, very accurate presentation on these four pillars that make Singapore so unique. The regulatory. Actually, we will be talking about the sandbox a little bit later, because it's one of the Singapore is an expert in sandbox, and is one of the hot topics in Spain right now. And obviously, the business skill, the innovation, and the ecosystem effect. So now I will give the floor to Rodrigo García de la Cruz, so you can give us an idea of the potential of the Spanish fintech association and Spanish fintech ecosystem. Rodrigo, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. First of all, it's a real pleasure to be here. Thank you to Mr. Ambassador Santiago Miralles, José María Blasco, Laura, Nacho, and Sinuef to do this real. So in the next minutes, I'm going to describe the Spanish fintech ecosystem, discovering the association, the Spanish Fintech Association, and also why Spain is a great place to be. I'm going to share a presentation. Let me check if you can see it. Right?
Yes, we can see it.
We can see it. Okay, so welcome to FinTech Spain. So let's start with the Spanish Fintech and Insurtech Association. It was founded in 2016. We have now more than 150 members. It's one of the largest fintech associations in Europe and in Latin America. And we have 30 verticals of activity because we have a lot of kind of different fintechs, Insurtech, RegTechs, crowdfunding, neobanks, marketplaces. So we have a lot of different kind of startups. Our mission, first of all, is to represent the fintech and Insurtech ecosystem in Spain, creating the best environment as possible in order to have a good fintech regulation and give the attraction of investment and talent, to promote the sustainability and the financial inclusion, as we will see later on, creating international alliances and partners, and last but not least, working in women in fintech, because we have some initiatives related with this. What has been the most important achieved goals by AEFI? So first of all, the white papers. One of the things is identifying the barriers and the opportunities and the challenge in different verticals of activity in the fintech area, and we started creating the first white paper done by an association, pulled by an association in 2017, following the crowdfunding, the sandbox, the Insurtech, WealthTech, PayTech, and all of them working directly with the regulators, the supervisors, and the main leaders in this area. It's why we are working closely with the regulators and supervisors, have regular meetings and different activities with them in order to have this perfect ecosystem. On the other side, as I said before, and Nacho mentioned, we have been one of the main promoters of the international alliances. First one, the Fintech American Alliance, that it was born in 2017, and I had the opportunity to be the first president. And on the other side, last year, we created the European Digital Finance Association. So at the end, Spain is between these big regions, and we have the connection with more than 40 associations that are managing 40 countries in these different places. On the other side, as I said before, woman in fintech, we have an initiative called Fintech Woman Network, and we have it's a gender initiative with different activities and annual report about the gender in the fintech ecosystem. In fact, one of the figures is that 60% of the managers in fintech in Spain are women. So we are doing a very, very good work, and in the next weeks we will publish the next report. And the most important one that we have been, I would say, pushing the oldest, the public statement in order to have a sandbox. This sandbox is one of the most complete one in the world. We are following the English one. Is focused not only for startups but also for corporations. One of the key things is that it has a European scope, and any kind of regulated or non-regulated company could access directly to all the supervisors and regulators, having after that a fast-track license authorization. The first cohort, I will hope that it will be open at the end of this year, because we are in the last steps of the approval in the government. So anything you need, because it has been a brief introduction of the association, but whatever you need, you can contact us and we will help you to be part of the Spanish fintech ecosystem. On the other side, I would like to introduce you and turn your attention to why Spain is a fintech leader country to be. To do so, let me introduce you first of all my company. As Nacho has said, we are a merchant service platform that we are connecting more than 50,000 fintechs, corporation investors worldwide, and we have a lot of information, and we have created different reports. One of them is the report that we are going to see, that we are identifying the variables to be a leader fintech country. As we can see, Singapore is a leader country because we are following all of these variables. And what is doing Spain to do so? So we can see that first of all is the maturity, the ecosystem size of fintech. Second one is the capital and investment attraction, regulatory pro fintech framework. What is your location and the market access, the talent, and obviously the quality of life. I'm going to go through all of them very quick because we don't have time, but I think it's going to be very interesting. First of all, maturity and size of the fintech ecosystem. Spain is the first country in the world in fintech per capita, and is the first country in the Eurozone. We have more than, in January of this year, we had 1,200 fintechs, Insurtech, PropTechs in the ecosystem, and it's growing 20% every year. As we can see, we have more than 400 pure fintechs, but also we have different of Insurtechs, RegTechs, PropTechs that is being part of the fintech ecosystem. All of these are maps from Finnovating. Talking about the attraction of investment, Spain is the third country in the Eurozone in investment in fintech, and we can see here some of the latest investments. Later on, we will talk about the challenges we have in this way. Anyway, last week, one of the major PropTechs of Spain has been sold for more than 1.3 billion euros. So we have some unicorns in Spain. We are able to build good unicorns in our country. Talking about regulatory framework for fintech, as I said, sandbox, our fintech sandbox is going to be a different key for Europe, because any corporation, regulated or not regulated, is going to be accepted or could be accepted to the sandbox. And the key idea is that is with an European scope. So we are in the single market in Europe. On the other side, there's a very good connection because all the different supervisors of banks, stock exchange, securities, insurance, you can access to all of them just through the sandbox. On the other side, about the strategic location and access to the market, Spain has a very geostrategic position. We have access to 1.6 million of consumers, not only in Europe but also in Latin America and but also in the north of Africa. And we have headquarters of one of the largest or some of the largest retail banks in the world, like BBVA and Santander, and is the perfect way to open your B2B or even your B2C fintech ecosystem or fintech business model. About the talent, we have one of the best offers of fintech training, and also if we compare Spain with other countries in Europe, we have one of the lower cost of workers. And the end, just to finish, the quality of life after even after the COVID-19. The quality of life is much more important than ever. Following the Skyscanner, the meta search engine and travel agency survey, Spain is the first or the best country to live in, just because not only because the healthcare or climate, the infrastructures, security, and etc. So it's a very good place to be. Just a very quick conclusion. We think the Spain now is the perfect place to scale your fintech business, and we are very we want to create more and more bridges with Singapore and with Singapore Fintech. Thank you very much. Whatever you need, I will be happy to help you to open markets in Spain.
Thank you very much, Rodrigo, for this quick view on Spain and its potential. So the time is to open the dialogue, but in order to focus, let me, probably you are wondering why I'm doing this and who is this guy. Let me just a couple of minutes to introduce myself and to introduce this dialogue. Well, I call it before building bridges between Singapore and Spain, and this is something that I've been doing for the past 30 years. I was working in Singapore in 1990, 1991, 30 years ago, in the Spanish Chamber of Commerce with a scholarship from the ICX, and then I've been building bridges. I discovered 30 years ago that we have a lot to learn, the East from the West, not only the West from the West from the East, sorry. And there is a lot of learnings in business, innovation, and in many other realms. And Mr. Hock Lai has explained the strategic point of Singapore, a center of the ASEAN, which is this image. I think it really shows how in less than 2 hours you can reach 660 million people, and also if you plus India and China that are beyond the ASEAN, but culturally they are very much close to Singapore, and India and China and ASEAN are the 3 biggest conglomerates, and it's actually the actual engine of the world in terms of demography is in this region, which is driven the, and we have 660,000 people million people in ASEAN, plus 1.3 billion in China, in India, 1 billion in China. So, and all with very technologically savvy, very early adopters, innovative, with high education. But if we go to Spain, as Rodrigo was explaining, Spain can be the connection with the Latin American ecosystem and the European world. And if we go to something I noticed, something I realized while I was in Singapore. After working in Singapore, I want to work to Paraguay and Bolivia and Chile, Latin America. And at that time, I was surprised on how similar both realities are. Latin America, they are at an ocean apart, but when I was in Brazil or Paraguay, sometimes I forgot and I thought I was in Indonesia and Malaysia because of the landscape, because of the business, because of the work of the people, because of the cultural and economical development. There are very, very strong parallelism between Brazil and Indonesia, or between Malaysia and Peru and Colombia. And when we check the Human Development Index and the way they are achieving the sustainable development goals of the Agenda 2030, they are very much comparable. And so why do not connect them? As obviously this happened 30 years ago, I keep on going to Singapore on a regular basis. This was on the Singapore Fintech Festival. BBVA, the bank I work for, is a sponsor of this, is a partner of this event for the past 3 years. Actually, I've committed a very high level. You can see in this picture is Carlos Torres, our president, our chairman, and some other top executives are usual panelists at the Singapore Fintech Festival. And because we are very much aligned with the topics like sustainability, financial inclusion, and all those topics of the Fintech Festival. So with this very short introduction, well, just okay, I'll go back to the panel. So the purpose will be building bridges and making this, and with these similarities and this between those ecosystems, start talking. So Hock Lai also mentioned already what is the strongest, what makes Singapore so unique. So you did Rodrigo. So what has happened in the last 6 months? Not only for the COVID, but let's make a bigger question. What are the main challenges for Singapore and for Spain? The challenges, and then we'll talk about opportunities. So, Hoklai, can you give us some challenges of the current challenges, probably activated by this COVID pandemic?
Yeah. The challenges has been there, of course, but the COVID-19 just exacerbated all these challenges. First is the lack of technological talent. Singapore is one of the top 5 international financial centers, so there are a lot of professional talents in Singapore, but there's a lack of technological talents now. In fact, every 2 tech jobs, there's only 1 applicant. So what a lot of the fintech companies are doing now is that they will do their back-end software engineering work in countries like Vietnam or even China, or they'll just bring the developers from the respective countries. So tech talent is one challenge, which now our Institute of Higher Learnings, the universities, the polytechnics are trying to address that, but that will take time to address. The second thing is that in Singapore and in this region, the banks are still highly trusted compared to fintech companies. So that's why a lot of the models in this region are more B2B. Yeah. The third challenge is that Southeast Asia, while the region is very big, right? ASEAN, 650 million in population size, but it's 10 different countries, different cultures, languages, religion, and regulations. So it's very fragmented. It's not one homogeneous economic zone. So a lot of times you will need to find local partners. It's unlike in Singapore, it's very transparent. You can come here and incorporate 100% owned company in Singapore. But if you want to operate in Southeast Asia, you likely have to work with local partners to navigate the complexities over there. And the last one is actually on funding. I think when Singapore started our fintech journey 5 years back, fintech funding is still quite new. Quite a number of challenges, but I think over the last 5 years, we have managed to streamline some of the investment regulations to make it cost effective to set up your family office or your asset management company in Singapore. And I think we managed to resolve that. I think in Singapore now we have more than 150 investors, venture capitalists, which is why last year, there were close to 900 million in the fintech investments in Singapore, whole of 2019. And we are just ranked behind China and India in Asia in terms of fintech investment. And you are still, now a lot of the regional companies are coming, regional fintech companies are coming to Singapore to get funding. So I think these are the challenges that has been happening. COVID-19 just make it worse. Yeah.
Okay, Xixie, thank you, Hoklai. Well, tech talent shortage is a common thing all over the world. Banks still are being trusted, and I think they deserve to be trusted. But obviously, that's a big challenge for small fintech new companies that are newcomers, and they need to earn that trust. You mentioned that effectively the ASEAN is 10 different countries with 10 different regulations. Obviously, in Europe happens almost the same. We are 25 different countries with 25 different languages, more or less same religion, but with some differences. And now if we go to South America, we also have big differences. It's not the same doing business in Uruguay or Paraguay, or Peru or Argentina or Chile or Venezuela. And we have strong challenges. And obviously, fintech funding is always an issue in many places. There are a lot of ideas, but not so much money. So turning that know-how into cash flow is a challenge. Rodrigo, would you agree with these challenges in Spain and Europe?
Yes, more or less are the same, but in the different order. I will start with the funding. Probably Spain, the first challenge is the funding. If we go through the money raised in the capital raised for fintechs in Europe, Spain is the third in the Eurozone, is the fourth if we count on UK. is a very good position, but in terms of the numbers, the figures, we are not in the right in the place we have to be. Let me explain to you. In 2019, UK had raised the 42% of the whole investment in Europe. Germany was the second with the 28%, France the third with the 6%, and Spain with the 3%. And I think Spain and France is not a representation of the equivalent in the fintech industry, in the fintech sector. So we have a lack of investment, and it's why we don't have the enough fundings and enough vehicles of investment like UK or Germany, funds, etc. This is the most one, because the most important one, because we can see like Spanish companies compared with UK, for example, companies is sometimes 10 times cheaper in Spain. So it's a real opportunity, it's a very good opportunity for investors. But at the end, the Spanish companies sometimes they have to go outside if they want to raise more than 1 million euros. So I think things are changing right now, and there is a lot of initiatives. In fact, we are pushing and challenging our government to launch an initiative like the UK called Future Fund to do co-investment between the public and the public investors in order to go through the equity crowdfunding platforms that they can give money to the startups. We hope that is going to be real in the next months. The second one should be the competitive side, and he said that, and Hoklai said the European and in fact Spain is one of the most competitive retail financial spaces. It's very, very competitive, and it's why the B2C fintechs they need a lot of money to do marketing, to go outside to find clients. It's why almost 70% of the fintechs has changed or created directly in B2B. And this is why we can see not only in Spain but also in Europe lots of very technological B2B fintechs or regtechs giving a lot of things to banks or other financial institutions. But on the other side, this is a real problem right now with the close of markets and having this closely relationship with the banks, that some of them are not used to work with the startups in a full digital way, no? And the third one is the regulations, but for me, regulation is an opportunity, so I'm going to put it in the opportunity side. And the talent is a worldwide problem. But I would say it's not the first for Spain, because we have a lot of good engineers, a lot of good talent. In fact, some international fintechs like UK fintechs or other country fintechs are hiring the engineers in Spain, because they are very cheap comparing to the north of Europe, and having hundreds of techniques people working in Spain for fintechs or companies outside of Spain.
Thank you, Rodrigo. Well, I would like to remind to all the audience, the people that are listening to us, to attending to this conference, that they can also make their questions through the chat, and we will be opening them to Chia Hoklai and Rodrigo Garcia La Cruz. You mentioned before about the sandbox. The sandbox, both have mentioned about the sandbox. You have mentioned, Rodrigo, that Spain is working the first sandbox, and Hoklai has mentioned that there are two, not one, but two sandboxes in Singapore. I like very much the idea of that sandbox express for those low-risk projects. I don't know if all their audience now understand what a sandbox is. Can you please, Hoklai, explain a little bit about what the sandbox is and what's the purpose of that?
So regulation is almost like a feel-safe environment for a fintech or even a bank to try out new financial products with live people and live money. So, but you will be given a number of restrictions. For example, the number of people you can sell to might be capped. Let's say not more than 100 people or not more than 1,000, depending on the type of products you are selling. Or the amount of money you can collect could also be capped. So in a way, it's trying to minimize the risk in case that the idea, the innovative financial product or service does not work out and it has to be closed down gracefully. At least that can be well managed. So that is what is a regulatory sandbox. I think Singapore started our sandbox in 2016. We are not the first country to do regulatory sandbox. In fact, UK is the one who started regulatory sandbox. And we learned three things over the last few years. The first thing is that most innovative financial product and services don't need the sandbox. The current regulations in Singapore, the current financial regulations in Singapore are quite mature and are able to fit into these new business models. The second lesson is that some of the sandbox model is actually, the risk is already quite well understood, like insurance brokerages or even exchanges, whether it's for example, stock exchanges, the risk are already quite well understood and the tools to manage the risk are already there, which is why Singapore rolled out the Sandbox Express, so that for people who are doing all these products and services, they can use the Sandbox Express route. And the third thing that we learned is that, in fact, out of the half of the applicants for the sandboxes in Singapore are blockchain companies. So, for example, we have a company that is tokenizing corporate bonds, because to buy a corporate bond, it costs 250,000. So what the company does is it breaks down a corporate bond, 250,000 into 1,000 units, fractionalizing corporate bonds, put it on blockchain exchange, and then sell it. So, and then we have other companies that are using the Sandbox Express to digitize, for example, security tokens such as real estate or even private equity shares on STO exchange. Yeah, so these are the three things that we have learned about Sandbox after operating it for the last few years. Thanks.
Thank you, Hok Lai. Rodrigo, would you like to ask to mention something about the Sandbox? What is the state of the art of the Sandbox in Spain right now? And I am collecting some questions that I will send you right now. Tell us about the Sandbox in Spain.
So the Spanish sandbox, the idea started in 2017, following the English sandbox. That is, it was one of the leaders and the pioneers, and right now is almost approved. In fact, we hope the first cohort, the first moment to apply is going to be at the end of this year. What makes the difference and what is the opportunity for this fintech, not only for Spain, but also for all the companies who wants to apply? First of all, that after this English sandbox is not in the continental Europe a full sandbox. When I say a full sandbox, I say a sandbox that any kind of organization of fintech or bank, regulated or not regulated, with an activity regulated or not regulated, can go to this sandbox. So it's probably one of the most open and the most full sandbox in the world. Secondly, we are in the European market. It's a single market. So any kind of European company or any kind of worldwide company who wants to go through the European market, they can use the Spanish sandbox. And this is a real key, because up to now and after up to the Brexit, you can use the UK sandbox, and now they are going to live together, the UK sandbox and the Spanish sandbox, helping each other to open markets in both sides. So this is very important. On the other side, I think is the perfect situation, the perfect opportunity that the fintechs and banks, they can co-create projects, because sometimes inside of the banks they have some compliance issues or legal issues that stop some of the projects, and right now they have the opportunity to go like the projects that Hok Lai said about the blockchain for corporate bonds, etc. And And at the end, it's the best way to attract talent and investment, because we are working with some of the international fintechs and corporations that they want to go to the Spanish sandbox. So anyone who wants to join the European market can access to the Spanish sandbox.
Thank you, Rodrigo. I see we have some people in the audience, some attendees from the major Spanish banks in Singapore, from Santander, La Caixa, and Sabadell, so that probably would like to make some questions. I encourage them, I invite them, and encourage them to take the most of this opportunity of talking to the president of both Singapore Fintech Associations in Singapore and Spain. In the meantime, we have a question from Alejandra Artiguez from Amazon Web Services that makes an introduction saying that MAS, Monetary Authority of Singapore, is very supportive to advanced technologies and to cloud computing, and he would like to know what role are these new technologies like cloud computing playing in the success of fintechs, both in Singapore and in Spain. Who wants to pick up the question?
Yeah, maybe I start first. So actually, what happened I shared that Singapore started our fintech journey in 2015. What we realized is that to encourage banks to collaborate with fintech, there's one challenge, because fintech, I would say 99.9% of the fintech companies run on cloud computing technology. That will be a big challenge for a bank to work with a fintech company which is putting their services on cloud computing. And if there is no clear guideline, no banks in Singapore is going to work with a fintech company. So during 2016, MAS, they didn't consult the banks because the banks are not using cloud computing in general at that point in time. They would not know much. So they actually collaborated. They actually collaborated with the cloud computing providers such as Amazon Web Services to see what is the best way to come up with a guideline to encourage banks to explore using cloud computing. Because this have two effects. One is that now banks, with a clearer guideline from the regulator, they will be more willing to collaborate with a fintech company. And the other thing, this allows them an opportunity to be more agile, because with cloud computing, they can roll out new innovative services from their own organizations faster. So in 2016, MAS rolled out a cloud computing and outsourcing guideline to give more clarity to the banks on how to use cloud computing, collaborate, and the outsourcing is more on the governing the collaboration with fintech companies. So this, in a way, catalyzed the collaboration between banks and fintechs in Singapore.
Let me add some key ideas. In terms of fintech, as my counterpart has said, most of the startups are in cloud, so they are full digital. The thing is how accessible, how scale and cost adaptive is the cloud computer at the first stage in order to scale after that. If from the point of view of a cloud provider, is one of the best places to be, because we can see that one of the industries that is raising more and more money worldwide is fintech. So I would like to be with fintechs if I was Amazon or whatever a cloud computing company. The thing is, if we are talking about cloud, we are talking about data. If we are talking about data, we are talking about different kind of legal and regulatory frameworks, and it's different in Europe than in Singapore, than even Latin America. So it's not only the cloud computing, it's what are you doing with the data, how you are managing the data, and how many algorithms you are creating over this data they are going to manage in the cloud computing. So I think it's the very interesting question, and there are a lot of things to work, not only in terms of technology, but also in the regulatory and compliance point of view.
Gracias. Thank you, Rodrigo. We have another question from Curro Sanchez. Actually, we have been talking about startups, how many startups there are in your associations, but we haven't mentioned the big guys, the Google and Apple and Facebook, that also they are moving the needle also. So Curro is asking, how do you think the competitions from established tech companies like Google Apple or Grab in Singapore in the fintech space will affect the market in the long term?
Yeah, okay. I'm actually quite positive because if you look at it, right, when Apple rolled out the Apple Card in US, right, the underlying financial service provider is not Apple, but I think it's Goldman or JP Morgan. Yeah, because the tech giants will realize that it is not their competitive advantage to provide financial services directly, because to run the bank is not easy. The KYC, AML, there's a lot of regulations, and banks do more than just retail or basic commercial banking relationships. They also fund big infrastructure projects. Those are not the areas I think the Googles or Apples they are interested in. They are mostly retail-facing kind of company. In fact, if you look at what happened in China, about 5 years ago, a lot of the big tech companies, the likes of Alibaba, Tencent, they started doing more financial services. But as financial regulations start tightening in China, a lot of them are switching their business model now. I see that they are pivoting to providing technological services to fintech companies or banks. So I think financial service is a unique industry because it's heavily regulated, unlike other kind of retail goods. So I think at some point in time, these tech players, while they might provide the front interface and owning the relationship with the consumers, the real financial services will still be either provided by the banks or the fintech companies. So in fact, it's good because they will collaborate through things like open API, for example. I mean, the other term of it is open banking. Yeah. That's my view.
Okay, Xixie. Rodrigo, anything to add or anything to mention? As you mentioned, I mean, I've been working for a bank for the banking industry for the last 29 years of my life. I can tell you that it is more difficult than it looks like. Huh?
Yes, I think it's a geostrategical competitive race between the United States and China about these big players, including in the offer the financial services, and they are the most or the first competitors for the banks. I think fintechs are not afraid of these big tech giants. In fact, Google was one of the most active investors in fintech up to 2 years ago. So I think it's not a war between fintechs and big techs. I think it's a little bit more between the financial industry and the big players. And at one moment they have to decide if they want to go to the financial services or not, and depending if they are providing services to the financial service or not. So it's a very, very interesting question.
Thank you, Rodrigo. Yeah, I have a reminder here. We are just 4 minutes. We have begun on time, sharp on time. We want to finish sharp on time. We have these 4 minutes. I would like to give you the opportunity for a closing remarks in 2 minutes each of a closing remark for Singapore Fintech and Spain Fintech. So some last message, Hawkeye, you would like to deliver?
Okay. I think just now I mentioned one of the challenges of Singapore is really the cost. I mean, cost of operating in Singapore is not low. So what we are seeing that a lot of business model is that they put their operating headquarters in Singapore, but their market is in Indonesia for those B2C, and their IT engineering is in Vietnam. So this is a very popular model now for operating in ASEAN. So something to consider for those companies interested in the ASEAN market. Come to Singapore, use it as an operating HQ, enjoy the digital infrastructure, low tax rate, efficient government services. From there, expand into ASEAN. Start with the company with the biggest population, in, like for example, Indonesia. Yeah, and have your tech solutions elsewhere.
Okay. Xixie, very smart view. Actually, we have a last question from Jose Maria. He's asking if how about financial inclusion? How is inclusive finance a top topic for Latin America and for Southeast Asia? Financial inclusion.
I think the ASEAN story is really about financial inclusion because the number of bank population in ASEAN is actually below 50%. But there are more than 80% of this population with smartphones. This is where fintech can play a very important role. You are able to keep your costs low and provide fractional financial services to the masses. So I think a lot of the opportunities in ASEAN is actually in financial inclusion. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yes.
So first, Rodrigo, Latin America is also a big issue.
Yes, absolutely. In fact, we are following the figures of investment last year. The largest fintech are neobanks. So neobanks are doing a great job in financial inclusion. So we can see that these kind of companies are growing a lot because as Kovlag has mentioned, less than 50% of the population has a bank account in Latin America.
Well, thank you, Rodrigo. Gracias. Well, it seems that the dialogue is raising up some questions. We have another one coming regarding VC, regarding venture capital investors, and this is coming from Sinue. Well, I think, by the way, Sinue Arroyo, the president of Tiger. Tiger is a very good example of a Spanish startup that went to Singapore and become a unicorn, or almost a unicorn, taking the most advantage of the schemes of Singapore to attract talent. Tiger is an artificial intelligence company providing services to the top banks in the world. And for me, I always mention it as a very good example of how a good idea, a good Spanish startup can go to Singapore and find the right environment to really grow, scale up, deliver, and become the best it can be. So Sinue is asking Hoklai about the VC ecosystem in Singapore is very solid from a very early stage all the way to Series B. But from there on, not so much. How do you think? Do you think this could negatively affect the development of fintech? This shortage of financing in the top.
This is a very fair. Earlier, I alluded that funding is one of the challenges. In fact, I think over the last 1 or 2 years, we see the VC market starting to mature. There are more Series B, Series C funding rounds that we are seeing now. And in fact, over the last few months, we are seeing a lot of capital flowing to Singapore. Obviously, because of the US-China trade tension, we are attracting some of the funds coming in. I am not saying that it will be immediately resolved, but I think when there are suitable companies that need that Series C, Series D, I think Singapore is maturing into that because we have, I think in terms of the financial infrastructure and reputation, I think we are in a very good position to be developed as a VC hub for at least Southeast Asia. Yeah, so I think over time that will be resolved. Thanks.
Okay. Shishe, thank you very much, Hawk Life, for this answer. And now we are just sharp on time, about on 6 o'clock, 12 at noon in Spain. So I think it's about time to close this dialogue. It has been a real pleasure, an honor, a very enlightening and educating experience to talk with you. Really, your expertise and your know-how, both of the Spanish and the Singaporean ecosystem, has been put in value. I see we have in the participants list some now names that from Singapore, from Enterprise Singapore, and from other companies, both from Spain and Singapore. And well, I don't know if Sinue or Ambassador Miralles would like to make some closing remark, but I think this has been they are saying no with their head. So anyway, thank you very much again, Rodrigo, and Hoklai. Thank you, Shishe, Terima kasih, Nandri, in the 4 official languages of Singapore, and hopefully we will have we have to start building this bridge between the fintech communities that will lead to something bigger and better. Thank you very much, and has been a real pleasure. Bye.